The slice backhand is a really important defensive shot, but when you can hit a slice backhand well, it can also be a real offensive weapon. Now, the chances are you've already watched a number of different videos on the slice backhand. You might even have worked with a coach. You've been out there, you've practiced, but for some reason, it's just not working as well as you want it to. So the question is why? Why haven't you been able to develop a good slice backhand yet? That's what I'm going to be answering in this video. Hopefully, I can explain the technique in a way that's going to enable you to think through it a little bit differently. And I also want to give you some things that you can work on to develop a much better slice backhand. So hopefully you find the video helpful. If you do, it would be great if you give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, it always really helps me out if you could do that as well. The slice backhand is going to share many of the same principles that the other ground strokes do. We need to use our kinetic chain, so we're going to be driving through our legs and hips, then our torso, then our arm is going to come through with the racket, and we're going to make contact out in front of our body. The contact point won't be quite as far forwards as a topspin forehand or a topspin backhand, but it does want to be out in front of our body. And just like with other shots, some things are going to be really important, other things are going to be way less important. And what you need to do is focus on the important stuff. The first one is going to be the way that you prepare, because unless you prepare properly, you're then not going to be able to use efficient biomechanics. You're not going to be able to use your kinetic chain. And if you watch pretty much anyone that's got a good slice backhand, the setup is very similar. There'll be an upper body rotation, so you'll be coiling your upper body. You want to be thinking your chest pointing towards the side fence is going to be a good minimum, but what you'll see for a lot of higher level players is they'll rotate even further back than that, but for most people, pointing towards the side fence is going to be a good target. We also want to take the racket high, so we'll be rotating towards the side fence, and the racket is going to be coming above the head, somewhere like that, in a position that looks roughly like that. We're going to be loading the back or outside leg. So as a right-hander, that's going to be my left leg. So the upper body is turned, but then my belly button is turned into this hip, and this leg is bent because we're going to be pushing through that to initiate the swing. Now, it's not going to be the same sort of rotation that we see from the legs and the hips on the forehand, but we are going to be driving and initiating the swing by firing this back hip, followed by the torso. So we've got to make sure that that happens as part of your preparation, that as you're moving towards the ball, the final steps that you take, you're loading and rotating into that leg, and you're getting the prepared position with your upper body rotated and the racket high. So the preparation side always comes first. And when it comes to improving any of your strokes, you want to record yourself and find out where things are going wrong. Are you preparing properly? Are you split stepping? Are you reacting to the flight of the ball? Are you setting up in the right position in time? Because if you're not, that's the first thing that you need to address. So we've got the preparation, and then we've got the swing itself. And just like every other shot in tennis, the hard thing is the timing. Well, the first hard thing is setting up in the right position in time, but then the next hard thing, and really the difference between the levels of strokes and the levels of player, is the timing. Can you initiate your swing at the right time relative to the flight of the ball? And then do you have the coordination to sequence your kinetic chain properly? But where it goes wrong for most people is the swing initiation. Most people start their swing too late. So the ball is too far this way before they start their swing, before they start driving through the hip, before they start the forward swing, and then that throws everything else off. So that means that you can't get a good quality contact. It means that you can't get the strings facing in the way that you would see from a lot of high level players. It's going to negatively impact what happens to the follow through. So it's generally the timing that's the difficult part. So the question is, how do you fix timing? And unfortunately, that one is easier said than done. It can take a little bit of work, and there's a few things involved. One of the first things that's going to need to happen for you to have good timing is you need to be able to accurately read the flight of the ball. You need to be able to read how fast it's traveling, how far it is away, predict how it's going to bounce off the court, so then you can start your swing at the right time. If you're not able to read the flight of the ball, you'll never have good timing. And unfortunately, most adult tennis players' visual systems don't work well enough to enable them to have good timing, because people go to school at a young age and they spend most of their lives sitting down, looking at phones, looking at screens, and the visual system adapts to that. And that does the opposite of prepare your visual system to be able to play tennis and to be able to read the flight of the ball. So I find that for most players to develop a better slice backhand or any other shot, to just improve timing on every shot, they need to improve how their visual system functions. And that's something you can actually do using brain-based training. So instead of showing you that here, I've created a free program to help you get started. So I'll place a link to the free program down in the description, or you can go to tennishacker.net/vision and you can get the free program there. But then once you're working on how your visual system is functioning, it's then about what can you do on court to improve your ability to get better timing. Now, part of that is going to be thinking through the flight of the ball. So as your opponent is shaping up for their shot, you're watching them and you're looking for clues about what they might be doing. Are they brushing up the back of the ball? So they're going to be hitting with topspin, and then the ball's going to react in a certain way off the court. Are they hitting slice themselves? So maybe the ball's going to bounce and it's going to stay low. So you're watching what their racket's doing. You're landing your split step just after they've made contact, and hopefully you'll be able to quickly read where the ball's going. So then you can start to move in position. But once the ball's traveling, you're looking at the height of the ball, you're trying to judge the speed, you're trying to judge how far the ball is going to go in terms of traveling through the court. So you're thinking about that, and then it's about initiating the swing. Now, there's no right or wrong way to do this, but what I've had to do, I'm naturally a right-handed player, but I've injured myself in a mountain bike crash, so now I'm relearning to play left-handed. And what I've done for my left-handed tennis to try and solve the timing problem is I did a lot of work with the ball machine. I would feed myself a specific ball, so if I'm working on my slice backhand, I'll feed the ball into a certain place, and I'll just try and get the timing. And generally what that means is I would normally get the timing wrong to start with. I would start my swing too late. So then what I would do is I would make an adjustment. I would notice when I was starting my swing. So was I starting my swing before the ball bounced? Was I starting my swing after the ball bounced? Was I starting it as the ball bounced? And then I would just adjust my timing forwards. So I was starting my swing a little bit sooner. So thinking about driving through my hip just that little bit sooner. And over time, I was able to do that and work on different types of feeds and improve my ability to initiate the swing at the right time. And then I got to the point where I was able to do that, rallying with people and playing points, playing matches. But it was a process of doing that over and over again to enable me to start initiating my swing at the right time, because that's the first thing that needs solving. Now, something else that doesn't get talked about so much in terms of the swing, if you watch high-level players hitting a slice backhand, they'll be taking the racket back high, they'll start the leg drive, they'll start the torso drive, and there's actually kind of a racket lag on the slice backhand as well. You'll see the racket doesn't just come from there down to there into contact, it comes from there, the strings open up and they point more towards the sky, and then there's this motion that then allows you to get much more spin on your shot. So it's there to there to there, and then it comes through. And the only way that you can get that kind of racket lag on the slice is to get the timing. If you don't start your swing soon enough, you don't have the space, you don't have the room to get that racket lag, which is why I've just spent so much time talking about the timing component. And then if we look at the contact, what are the strings doing at the moment of contact? When you watch players with a good slice, the string face is going to be open, but only slightly. But again, unless you get the timing component right, unless you start your swing, get into the racket lag, and then it comes into this position, it's really hard to get the contact looking like it should do. And again, that's why I've just spent so much time talking about the swing initiation, because that's really the big problem that players need to solve. And then in terms of the follow through, there's nothing really to think about. The racket is just going to go where it goes as a result of physics and momentum. So hopefully everything I've just explained makes sense. You have to start by preparing properly. You have to make sure you're preparing soon enough. If you're struggling with late preparation, I'll place a resource in the description to help you with that, because we've got to be set up in time. We've got to have the right starting position. Spacing can be a factor. On most shots, If you get too close to the ball, it completely messes stuff up. On the slice backhand, it doesn't actually mess stuff up quite as much. You can hit a really good slice backhand being fairly close to the ball. It just ends up being a slightly inside-out curve to the ball. So the spacing's less of a factor here. The big one, like I said, is that timing. You've got to start your swing soon enough. And this is just a case of recording yourself, get honest feedback, record yourself from the back, record yourself from the side, see where things are going wrong, and then work towards addressing the underlying problems in the way that I've outlined here. And it's a process, it'll take a little bit of time, but if you keep working through it methodically, you'll be able to develop a much better slice backhand. Okay, any questions or comments about what I've talked about here, leave them down below. A reminder about that free Vision Starter program. Plain and simply, you can only play as well as your visual system will allow. It's the big limiter for most players, so I highly recommend working on that free program. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.